The clock on the hospital wall showed 11:47 p.m. when 8-year-old Emma walked up to her third stranger that night. Her small hand tugged on the white coat of a tired doctor rushing past the waiting room. "Excuse me, sir," Emma said in her polite voice, the one her father taught her to use with adults. "My daddy has lots and lots of money. Can you sell me a sister?" The doctor stopped and looked down at this little girl with messy brown hair and sad eyes. She wore an expensive pink dress that was now wrinkled from sitting in the hard plastic chairs for hours. Her patent leather shoes dangled above the floor. "Sweetie, where are your parents?" the doctor asked, kneeling down to her level. "My daddy is in room 302 with Grandma. She's really sick and might go to heaven like Mommy did." Emma's voice stayed steady, like she was talking about the weather. "But I've been thinking. If Daddy can buy me anything I want, why can't he buy me a sister? I asked the nurse lady and the man cleaning the floors, but they said no. I thought maybe you could help." The doctor's heart broke a little. "Honey, that's not how sisters work. You can't buy people." Emma tilted her head, confused. "But Daddy always says money can fix everything. When I was sad about Mommy, he bought me a new bike. When I cried at school, he bought me new toys. I have a whole room full of toys, but I'm still sad. I think what I really need is a sister." Before the doctor could respond, Emma continued her heartbreaking logic. "I see other kids at school with sisters and brothers, and they're never alone. I'm always alone. Even when Daddy is home, he's on his phone or computer. A sister would play with me and talk to me and maybe sleep in my room so I'm not scared at night." The doctor glanced around the nearly empty waiting room. It was late, and this child had been here for hours, approaching every adult with the same impossible request. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma. Emma Johnson. My daddy is James Johnson. He owns the big building downtown with his name on it." She said this without bragging, just stating facts. "He told me to wait here while he talks to Grandma. But I got bored, so I decided to ask people about buying a sister." "Emma, sisters aren't something you can buy in a store. I know toys come from stores, and clothes come from stores, and food comes from stores. Where do sisters come from?" Emma asked with genuine curiosity. The doctor struggled to find words appropriate for a child dealing with such complex emotions. "Well, sisters usually come when mommies and daddies love each other very much and decide to have another baby." Emma's face fell. "But my mommy is gone. Daddy says she's in heaven watching over us. So I can't get a sister that way." She perked up slightly. "That's why I thought maybe money could work instead. Daddy always says his money can solve any problem." "Sometimes there are problems money can't solve, Emma. Then how do I get a sister?" The question came out as a whisper, and for the first time that night, Emma's brave facade cracked. Her bottom lip trembled. "I've been good. I eat my vegetables and do my homework and don't make messes. I even stopped crying about Mommy because it made Daddy sad. But I'm so lonely. At school, everyone talks about their brothers and sisters. I just sit by myself and pretend I have a sister too." The doctor sat down in the chair next to her. "Tell me about this pretend sister." Emma's eyes lit up. "Her name is Amy, and she's 6. She has curly hair like mine used to be before Daddy made me cut it short because it was too much trouble. Amy likes to draw pictures and sing songs. She sleeps in the other bed in my room, the one Daddy says is for guests but no guests ever come. We talk every night before we go to sleep." "That sounds nice, Emma." "It is, but it's not real. I want a real sister who can hug me back and play games and help me not be scared when Daddy has to travel for work. Mrs. Peterson stays with me then, but she just watches TV and tells me to be quiet." Emma kicked her legs back and forth. "I know I'm asking for something big. That's why I thought maybe it would cost a lot of money. Daddy spent $50,000 on my birthday party last year, and all those people were just pretending to be my friends because their parents work for Daddy. The sadness in her voice was too mature for an 8-year-old. I heard Daddy on the phone yesterday saying he'd pay anything to make me happy. So I thought maybe he could pay for a sister. Have you talked to your daddy about wanting a sister? I tried, but he gets this look on his face like when people mention mommy. Then he asks if I want a new toy or if we should go somewhere fun. But I don't want toys or trips. I want someone who belongs to our family and won't leave. Emma's voice got smaller. Everyone always leaves. The doctor checked his watch. He had other patients to see, but this child's pain was impossible to ignore. Emma, maybe your daddy doesn't understand what you really need. Adults never understand, Emma said matter-of-factly. They think kids want stuff, but really we just want people who love us and stay with us. That's why I keep asking strangers. Maybe one of them has an extra sister they don't need. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Emma turned to see her father approaching, his expensive suit wrinkled and his hair messy. His face was pale with exhaustion and grief. Emma, there you are. I told you to stay in the chair. James Johnson looked like a man carrying the weight of the world. At 35, he was successful beyond most people's dreams, but tonight he looked older than his years. Daddy, this is the doctor. I asked him about buying a sister, but he said no too. Emma stood up and smoothed down her dress. How is Grandma? James's jaw tightened. She's very sick, sweetheart. We need to go home now. The doctor stood and extended his hand to James. Mr. Johnson, your daughter has been asking everyone here about getting a sister. She's been very brave, but I think she needs to talk to someone about her feelings. James looked embarrassed. I'm sorry if she bothered you. Emma, we've talked about this. You can't just ask strangers for things. But Daddy, you always say, not now, Emma. James's voice was sharp with stress and exhaustion. We'll talk at home. As they walked toward the elevator, Emma turned back to wave at the doctor. Thank you for listening, she called out. If you change your mind about the sister, we live in the big house on Maple Street with the tall gates. The elevator doors closed on a millionaire and his daughter, one man who thought money could solve everything, and one little girl who had just discovered it couldn't buy the one thing she needed most. In the silence of the elevator ride down, Emma pressed her face against the cold metal wall and whispered to her reflection, please, somebody, somewhere, help me get a sister. I promise I'll be the best big sister ever. James heard her whisper but pretended he didn't, because he had no idea how to fix this problem that money couldn't solve. The iron gates of the Johnson estate closed behind their black Mercedes with a soft electronic hum. The driveway curved through perfectly manicured gardens that Emma barely noticed anymore. She pressed her face to the window, watching the fountain in the center courtyard splash water that caught the moonlight. Daddy, why is our house so big if it's just you and me? Emma asked as they pulled up to the front entrance. James turned off the engine and sat in the driver's seat for a moment longer than necessary. The mansion loomed before them, 3 stories of classical architecture that had graced the cover of architectural magazines. 42 rooms, including a ballroom they'd never used and a dining room table that could seat 20 people. Tonight, it felt more like a mausoleum than a home. It's big because... James started, then stopped. Because your mother wanted it this way. Because I thought bigger meant better. Because I didn't know then that a house isn't a home just because it costs millions. Because we have the space. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed out of the car. Her footsteps echoed against the marble columns as they approached the front door. Could a sister fit in our house? Emma, please. It's been a long night. The massive front door opened to reveal their housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, a stern woman in her 50s who managed the household with military precision. Mr. Johnson, how is your mother? Stable, for now. James loosened his tie and handed her his jacket. Emma should have been in bed hours ago. Of course, sir. Emma, let's get you upstairs. But Emma didn't move toward the grand staircase. Instead, she walked into the living room, her small figure dwarfed by the high ceilings and expensive furniture. Everything was white and cream and perfectly clean. It looked like a magazine photo, not a place where a family lived. Mrs. Patterson, Emma said, turning around with sudden determination, do you have any sisters? The housekeeper paused in folding James's jacket. I have 2 sisters, yes. Both older than me. Emma's eyes widened with interest. What's it like? Having sisters? Well, they used to braid my hair when I was your age. We shared clothes and secrets. Sometimes we fought, but we always made up before bedtime. Mrs. Patterson's stern expression softened slightly. Why do you ask? Because I want one. I asked Daddy to buy me one, but he keeps saying no. James rubbed his temples where a headache was forming. Emma, we've discussed this. You can't buy people. But you bought Mrs. Patterson. I hired Mrs. Patterson. That's different. She works here, but she has her own family and her own home. Emma considered this. So you can't buy a sister, but you can hire one? No, that's not. James stopped himself. How did he explain the difference between employment and family to an 8-year-old who had grown up thinking money could solve everything? Mrs. Patterson knelt down to Emma's level. Sisters aren't something you hire, dear. They're part of your family. They love you even when you're cranky or messy or sad. Like Mommy did? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. James felt his chest tighten. 2 years later, and Emma's innocent questions about her mother still hit him like a punch to the gut. Yes, Mrs. Patterson said gently. Like your mommy did. Emma nodded thoughtfully, then looked around the vast living room. This house has enough space for a sister, right? I counted once. There are 6 bedrooms just on the 2nd floor. 1 for me, 1 for Daddy, 1 for guests who never come, and 3 that are just empty. The space isn't the issue, sweetheart, James said, sitting down on the couch. His daughter remained standing, too restless to sit still. Then what is the issue? Is it money? Because you have lots of money. You told Mr. Henderson last week that money isn't a problem when he wanted to buy the building next to yours. James realized his daughter had been listening to more conversations than he thought. It's not about money, Emma. Then what? Emma's voice rose with frustration. I don't understand why I can't have the one thing I really want. You buy me toys I don't ask for and clothes I don't need and take me places I don't want to go. But the one thing I actually want, you say I can't have. She walked over to the enormous window that overlooked their back garden. Even in the darkness, the pool and tennis court were visible under landscape lighting. Sarah at school says her sister Annie helps her with homework and tells her funny jokes when she's sad. Tommy says his little brother always wants to play with him, even when Tommy doesn't want to. That sounds nice. Having siblings isn't always nice, Emma. Sometimes brothers and sisters fight. Emma turned around quickly. I wouldn't fight with my sister. I'd share everything with her. She could have half my toys and half my room and half my clothes. I'd teach her how to ride a bike and how to swim in our pool and how to be brave when it's dark. The longing in her voice was heartbreaking. James had given his daughter every material advantage possible, but he couldn't give her what she wanted most, a family that felt complete. Emma, making a family isn't as simple as buying something from a store. I know that now. The doctor at the hospital explained it to me. Emma walked back to where her father sat and climbed onto the couch next to him. He said sisters come when mommies and daddies love each other and decide to have another baby. James tensed. This conversation was heading somewhere he wasn't prepared to go. So, Emma continued with 8-year-old logic, you need to find a new mommy who wants to have a baby sister for me. Emma, it's not that simple. Why not? You're handsome and rich and smart. Lots of ladies would probably want to marry you. Emma cuddled against his side, something she rarely did anymore. Maybe the new mommy could love me too, like my real mommy did. James wrapped his arm around his daughter, feeling the weight of her hope and his own inadequacy. Do you remember your real mommy? A little bit. She smelled like flowers and sang me songs at bedtime. She made funny faces when she fed me vegetables to make me laugh. And she never seemed tired of playing with me like you do sometimes. The honesty stung, but James knew it was true. He did get tired of constant games and questions and needs. He loved Emma desperately, but he'd never learned how to be the kind of father who found joy in the daily routine of parenting. I miss her, Emma whispered. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. They sat in silence for a while, surrounded by luxury but feeling the emptiness that no amount of money could fill. Mrs. Patterson had quietly disappeared to give them privacy. Daddy? Emma's voice was sleepy now. If you can't buy me a sister, and you can't find me a new mommy, could you at least try? Could you look for someone who might want to be part of our family? James looked down at his daughter, this little person who had lost so much already and was asking for so little, really. Just someone to love her. Someone to make their house feel less like a museum and more like a home. I'll think about it, he said finally. Promise? I promise I'll think about it. Emma smiled for the first time all day. Thank you, Daddy. That's all I wanted, for you to try. As James carried his sleepy daughter up the grand staircase to her bedroom, he wondered how a millionaire businessman who could negotiate million-dollar deals felt completely helpless when it came to his 8-year-old daughter's simple wish for a sister. But he had made a promise, and James Johnson always kept his promises. 3 weeks after the hospital incident, Emma's sister requests had become a daily occurrence. James first noticed the pattern when his personal assistant, Rachel, mentioned that Emma had asked her about sisters during their visit to the office. She wanted to know if I had any extra sisters I could share, Rachel reported with barely concealed amusement. When I explained I was an only child, she asked if I knew anyone who might want to be her sister. James groaned inwardly. What did you tell her? I said I'd keep my ears open. Rachel glanced at her tablet. Mr. Johnson, your daughter is clearly working through some feelings about family. Maybe you should consider, thank you, Rachel. That will be all. But Emma's campaign didn't stop with office staff. At the grocery store that weekend, she approached the checkout clerk. Ma'am, do you have any daughters who might want to be my sister? Emma asked politely as James loaded expensive organic groceries onto the belt. The clerk, a teenage girl with bright pink hair, looked confused. I don't have any daughters. I'm only 17. Oh. Do you want to be my sister? I have a really big house and a swimming pool. James quickly stepped in. Emma, apologize for bothering the nice lady. I wasn't bothering her. I was making a business proposal, like you do. Emma looked genuinely puzzled by his reaction. You always say you have to ask for what you want in business. The drive home was tense. James tried to explain why you couldn't just ask strangers to join your family, but Emma's 8-year-old logic was relentless. You ask strangers to work for your company, she pointed out. That's different. That's a job. So being a sister is a job. Can I pay someone to be my sister? No, Emma. Being a sister isn't a job. It's a relationship. Then how do people get sisters if they can't buy them or hire them? James realized he was going in circles. Every answer led to another question he couldn't adequately explain. The situation escalated at Emma's school the following Monday. James received a call from the principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, asking him to come in for a meeting. Emma has been interviewing her classmates about their family structures, Mrs. Rodriguez explained as they sat in her office. She's been asking detailed questions about how their siblings came to be part of their families. James shifted uncomfortably in the small chair designed for children. I'll talk to her about appropriate classroom behavior. That's not why I called you, Mr. Johnson. Emma's questions aren't inappropriate, they're actually quite insightful. But her teacher, Miss Nora, is concerned about what's driving these questions. Emma seems to believe that having a sister would solve her loneliness. She's been going through a phase. Mrs. Rodriguez leaned forward. With all due respect, Mr. Johnson, this doesn't seem like a phase. Emma has been persistent about this topic for weeks. She's even started a notebook where she writes down information about how different families are structured. James felt his parental inadequacy growing stronger. What kind of information? Things like how Tommy's baby brother was born when Tommy was 5, or how Sarah's sister was adopted from China. She's doing research, Mr. Johnson. This little girl is seriously trying to figure out how to get a sister. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, with Mrs. Rodriguez gently suggesting that Emma might benefit from talking to the school counselor about her feelings of loneliness and her grief over her mother's death. She's well adjusted in most ways, the principal assured him. She's bright, kind to other children, and does well academically. But there's an underlying sadness that concerns us. That evening, James found Emma in her bedroom, working intently in a pink notebook. Her room was a paradise of toys and books and everything a little girl could want, but Emma sat alone at her desk like a tiny researcher. What are you working on, sweetheart? Emma looked up, her face serious. I'm making a plan. Mrs. Rodriguez said you have to have a plan if you want something important. James sat on the edge of her bed. Can I see your plan? Emma hesitated, then brought the notebook over. The first page was titled, How to Get a Sister, in careful 8-year-old handwriting. Below that, she had listed different methods. 1. Ask daddy to buy one doesn't work. 2. Ask strangers if they have extra sisters, no luck so far. 3. Find daddy a new wife who wants to have a baby, need to work on this. 4. Ask God for a sister, trying every night. 5. Save my allowance to buy one when I'm older, will take too long. James's throat tightened as he read his daughter's earnest attempts to solve her loneliness. On the next page, she had drawn pictures of herself with an imaginary sister, doing things like riding bikes, having tea parties, and sleeping in the same room. Emma, this is very thorough work. Thank you. I've been thinking about it a lot. She pointed to item number 3. I think that one might be the best option, but I need your help. I can't find you a wife by myself because I'm not allowed to talk to strange grown-ups without you there. James felt cornered by his daughter's logic and determination. Emma, finding a wife isn't like hiring an employee or buying a car. People have to fall in love. What's falling in love like? The question caught him off guard. How do you explain love to a child who had lost her mother so young? It's when two people care about each other very much and want to spend their lives together. Did you fall in love with Mommy? Yes, very much. Could you fall in love again? James paused. It was a question he'd avoided thinking about for 2 years. I don't know, sweetheart. Emma considered this seriously. Maybe you could try. For me. The simple request hit harder than any business pressure he'd ever faced. His daughter wasn't asking for toys or trips or expensive gifts. She was asking him to open his heart again, to risk loving and losing again, because she believed it might give her the family she desperately wanted. I know you miss Mommy, Emma continued softly. I miss her too. But maybe there's another nice lady somewhere who could love us both. Maybe she wants a family too. James looked at his daughter's hopeful face and realized that all his wealth and success meant nothing if he couldn't figure out how to make his child truly happy. Emma had lost her mother, but she was still willing to believe in the possibility of new love, new family, new happiness. You really want a sister that much? More than anything, Daddy. More than all my toys and clothes and trips put together. I want someone who belongs to us and won't ever leave. That night, after Emma was asleep, James sat in his home office staring at financial reports he couldn't concentrate on. His daughter's notebook lay open on his desk, and her carefully drawn pictures of sisters seemed to stare back at him. For the first time since his wife's death, James Johnson considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, his daughter was right. Maybe it was time to try. But the question remained. How does a wealthy, grief-stricken widower even begin to look for love again? And more importantly, how do you find someone who would want to love not just you, but your lonely daughter who desperately needed a sister? James picked up his phone and stared at it for a long time before putting it back down. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he would start figuring out how to keep his promise to Emma. 2 days later, James found himself walking through the hallways of Emma's school for the fall parent-teacher conferences. He'd always sent his assistant to these meetings before, but Emma's recent behavior made him realize he needed to be more involved in her school life. The elementary school was cheerful and bright, with children's artwork covering every wall. James felt out of place in his expensive suit among the casual clothes of other parents. He checked his phone while waiting outside Emma's classroom, trying to finish a business call. Mr. Johnson. A warm voice interrupted his conversation. James looked up to see a woman in her early 30s standing in the classroom doorway. She was beautiful in a natural way that made him forget his phone call entirely. Her dark skin glowed with health, and her smile was genuine and welcoming. She wore a simple blue dress that was professional but not fancy, and her hair was pulled back in a neat bun with a few curls framing her face. I'm Miss Nora, Emma's teacher. She extended her hand with confidence. Thank you for coming. Please, come in. James ended his call quickly and followed her into the classroom. The room was warm and inviting, nothing like the sterile offices he was used to. Student work covered bulletin boards, and reading nooks with soft cushions made the space feel cozy. Please, have a seat. Nora gestured to a small table with 2 adult-sized chairs. I'm so glad we finally get to meet face to face. I apologize for not coming to these meetings before. My schedule is usually very demanding. Emma mentioned that you're very busy with work. Nora's tone held no judgment, just understanding. She's very proud of what you do, you know. She tells everyone her daddy owns the tallest building in town. James felt a mixture of pride and guilt. She talks about me. All the time. She also talks about how much she misses having a complete family. Nora pulled out a folder with Emma's work. Emma is a wonderful student, bright, creative, and kind to her classmates. But there's something I wanted to discuss with you. Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned Emma has been asking unusual questions. Nora smiled. Not unusual, just very focused. Emma has become fascinated with family structures. She interviews other children about their siblings and takes notes about how their families work. She showed him a drawing Emma had made during art time. It showed a stick figure family with a daddy, a mommy, and 2 little girls holding hands. She draws families like this almost every day. James studied the drawing. Emma had labeled the figures Daddy, New Mommy, Emma, and Baby Sister. She's very determined about wanting a sister, Nora continued. Have you considered that this might be her way of processing her grief about her mother? We don't really talk about her mother much. It's difficult. Nora leaned forward slightly. Mr. Johnson, can I be honest with you? Please. Emma is a lovely child, but she carries a sadness that concerns me. She's always helping other children, always trying to take care of everyone else's needs, but she rarely asks for anything for herself. Except this. This sister thing is the first time I've seen her express what she wants. James felt uncomfortable under her gentle but perceptive gaze. I've tried buying her things, taking her places. Emma doesn't need more things, Mr. Johnson. She needs connection. She needs to feel like she belongs to a family that feels complete to her. And you think that means I need to remarry and have another child? James couldn't keep the defensive edge out of his voice. I think Emma needs to feel less alone. Whether that means more involved extended family, closer friendships, or yes, possibly a stepmother and siblings, that's for you to decide. But right now, this little girl is carrying the weight of being your only family, and that's a big responsibility for a child. Her words stung because they were true. Since his wife's death, Emma had become his entire world, but he'd never considered that he might have become her entire world too, and that might be too much pressure for an 8-year-old. She mentioned to me that you have a very large house but that it feels empty, Nora continued. She said sometimes she talks to her imaginary sister at night because the house is too quiet. James hadn't known about the imaginary sister. She never told me that. Children often don't tell their parents about imaginary friends because they worry adults will think it's silly. But Emma's imaginary sister serves a real purpose. She's giving Emma the companionship she craves. They spent the next 30 minutes going over Emma's academic progress, which was excellent. But James found himself more interested in Nora's insights about his daughter's emotional state. Mr. Johnson, can I ask you something personal? I suppose. Do you ever consider dating? I don't mean to pry, but Emma has mentioned that you don't go out with friends or have people over to the house. James shifted uncomfortably. I haven't really thought about it. My focus has been on work and Emma. That's admirable, but children learn about relationships by watching their parents. If Emma only sees you working and taking care of her, she might feel responsible for your happiness. That's a heavy burden for a child. Are you suggesting I should start dating for Emma's sake? Nora laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. I'm suggesting that maybe you should start living for your own sake, and Emma might benefit from seeing you happy and fulfilled. The conference wrapped up, but James found himself reluctant to leave. There was something about Nora that made him want to keep talking. She was intelligent and insightful, but also warm and easy to be around. Miss Nora, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have children of your own? No, I don't. But I've been teaching for 8 years, and I've worked with a lot of children dealing with various family situations. Emma's case isn't unusual, but her determination to solve it herself is remarkable. She is pretty determined. She gets that from her father, I'd guess. Nora smiled. Emma told me you never give up on anything you really want. James felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that he hadn't experienced in years. Miss Nora, would you like to get coffee sometime? To continue discussing Emma's needs, of course. Nora raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by his awkward attempt to make it sound professional. I'd like that, Mr. Johnson. For Emma's sake, naturally. James. Please call me James. James, then. And most people call me Nora. As James walked back to his car, he realized something had changed during that conversation. For the first time in 2 years, he'd met someone who made him think about something other than work or his responsibilities as a single father. More importantly, he'd met someone who truly understood Emma and saw her not just as his daughter, but as an individual with her own needs and feelings. Maybe Emma's persistent requests for a sister weren't as impossible as he'd thought. Maybe they just required him to be brave enough to open his heart again. And maybe, just maybe, the beautiful teacher with the warm smile and insightful mind was exactly the kind of person who could help him figure out how to give Emma the family she dreamed of. That night, when Emma asked about the parent-teacher conference, James told her more than he'd ever shared about a school meeting. Miss Nora is very nice, Emma said thoughtfully. Do you think she's the kind of person who might want to be part of a family? James looked at his daughter's hopeful face and decided to be honest. I don't know, sweetheart. But I think I'd like to find out. Emma's smile was brighter than any expensive gift had ever made it. The coffee shop Nora had chosen was small and local, nothing like the upscale restaurants James usually frequented for business meetings. Wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and the smell of freshly ground coffee beans created a warmth that felt foreign but pleasant to him. James arrived 5 minutes early, a habit from years of business meetings, and chose a corner table. He felt nervous in a way he hadn't experienced since high school. When Nora walked in wearing jeans and a soft green sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, he stood up so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. "Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I was helping set up for the school's fall festival." Nora slid into the seat across from him, completely at ease in the casual environment. "The fall festival? It's next weekend. Didn't you get the flyer Emma brought home?" Nora ordered a simple coffee when the waitress came by. "All the families come, there are games for the kids, a bake sale, live music. It's really fun." James realized he probably had received a flyer, but like most school communications, it had probably gotten lost in the pile of business documents he brought home each night. "I'll have to check my schedule. Emma would love it if you came. She mentioned that you don't usually participate in school events. My work schedule makes it difficult to commit to things in advance." Nora studied him over her coffee cup. "What is it you do, exactly?" "Emma just says you own a big building and make important phone calls. I run a commercial real estate development company. We buy properties, develop them, and lease office space to other businesses." James realized how cold that sounded. It's not very exciting. But it must be satisfying to create spaces where people work and build their own dreams. James paused. No one had ever described his work that way before. Most people were either impressed by the money or bored by the details. "I never thought of it like that. Emma said you built the biggest building in town. That must have been quite an accomplishment. It was a good investment." James caught himself giving another cold, business-like response. "I mean, yes. It was something I'd wanted to do for a long time." Nora laughed gently. "You can be proud of your success, James. There's nothing wrong with being accomplished." They talked for an hour, and James found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. Nora asked thoughtful questions about his work, but she also shared stories about her students and her teaching philosophy. She spoke passionately about helping children learn and grow, and James could see why Emma connected with her so strongly. "Can I ask you something?" James said as they prepared to leave. "Sure. Why did you become a teacher? You're obviously intelligent and capable. You could probably make more money in other fields." Nora smiled. "Because children matter more than money. I know that might sound naive to someone in your position, but I've never regretted choosing purpose over profit." James felt slightly stung by the implication that he'd chosen money over meaning. "I provide for Emma. I work hard so she can have everything she needs. I didn't mean to offend you. Emma clearly has everything she needs materially. But she also needs." Nora hesitated. "She needs what?" "She needs to see that life is about more than work and acquisition. She needs to see joy and spontaneity and human connection." "Are you saying I don't provide those things?" "I'm saying maybe you've forgotten how to enjoy them yourself." They walked to their cars in slightly tense silence. James felt criticized, but he also couldn't deny the truth in Nora's words. "James," Nora said as they reached her car, "I didn't mean to judge you. Single parenting is incredibly hard, and you're clearly devoted to Emma. I just think maybe you're so focused on giving her material security that you might be missing opportunities to give her emotional security." "Like what?" "Like showing up to school events. Like having friends over to that big house. Like letting her see you laugh and have fun and be spontaneous sometimes." James considered this. "Emma has never complained about our lifestyle. Emma is 8 years old, and she lost her mother. She's not going to complain about anything you do because she's terrified of losing you too. But that doesn't mean she's truly happy. The observation hit hard because it explained some of Emma's behavior he'd never understood. Her constant politeness, her reluctance to ask for things, except the sister, her tendency to take care of his feelings by not expressing her own. The fall festival, James said suddenly. Would you mind if I came with Emma? I might need help figuring out how to enjoy it properly. Nora's smile was warm and genuine. I'd like that. And James? Emma would be over the moon to have her father there, especially if she sees you actually having fun. That Saturday, James found himself standing in the school parking lot wearing jeans and a casual shirt, feeling more nervous than he had before any business presentation. Emma practically vibrated with excitement beside him. Daddy, you're really here. Wait until I show everyone. Emma grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the school entrance. Miss Nora said she'd save us places at the cakewalk. The festival was chaos in the best possible way. Children ran between game booths, parents chatted in small groups, and volunteer teachers managed activities with patient smiles. James felt overwhelmed by the noise and activity until he spotted Nora at a ring toss booth, laughing as she helped a kindergartner aim for the bottles. Miss Nora! Emma called out, waving enthusiastically. Nora looked up and her face lit up when she saw James. You made it. Emma, your dad looks very handsome in casual clothes. James felt himself blush like a teenager. Emma beamed with pride as she introduced him to other children and their parents. For the first time, James realized how much Emma had wanted to show him off at school events. Want to try the ring toss? Nora asked James. Emma's already won a stuffed animal. I'm not very good at games. That's okay, Daddy. Miss Nora taught me that trying is more important than winning. Emma handed him 3 rings. Just have fun. James found himself laughing as ring after ring missed the bottles entirely. Other parents cheered his attempts, and Emma giggled every time he failed dramatically. When he finally landed 1 ring, Emma acted like he'd won the Olympics. See, Daddy. You can do it. Emma hugged his arm. This is the most fun we've ever had together. The comment made James's chest tight with emotion. They'd been to expensive theme parks and exclusive resorts, but a simple school carnival was the most fun they'd ever had. James, would you help me with the fishing game? Nora asked. I need someone tall to hang up new prizes. As James hung plastic toys from strings above a kiddie pool, Nora stood close enough that he could smell her perfume, something light and floral that suited her perfectly. You're doing great, she said quietly. Look how happy Emma is. James looked across the room to see Emma playing a beanbag toss game with 3 other children, laughing and cheering for each other's turns. Her face was more animated than he'd seen it in months. She's usually so quiet and serious, he murmured. Children need permission to be silly sometimes. They need to see the adults in their lives being silly too. I don't think I remember how to be silly. Nora grinned mischievously. Want me to teach you? Before James could respond, she grabbed his hand and pulled him over to a booth where parents were attempting to eat donuts hanging from strings without using their hands. Your turn, Mr. Important Businessman. Nora, I can't. Emma's watching, Nora said softly. Show her it's okay to look foolish sometimes. James looked at his daughter, who was indeed watching with hopeful eyes, then at the powdered donut swinging in front of his face. Taking a deep breath, he leaned forward and tried to bite it. Powdered sugar exploded everywhere, covering his face and shirt. Emma erupted in delighted giggles. Daddy, you look like a snowman. Emma ran over and wiped powdered sugar from his nose. Do it again. For the next 2 hours, James found himself participating in every ridiculous game and activity at the festival. He got his face painted with a butterfly at Emma's request, attempted to pin the tail on the donkey while blindfolded, and even judged a children's talent show where Emma sang a wobbly version of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." As the festival wound down, Emma fell asleep in James's arms while he and Nora helped clean up. Other parents thanked him for helping and mentioned how nice it was to finally meet Emma's father. "She talks about you all the time," one mother said. "It's clear how much she loves you." "James," Nora said as they packed up the last of the game supplies, "you were wonderful today. Emma was so proud to have you here. I haven't seen her that happy since." James trailed off. "Since her mother died?" "Yeah." James adjusted Emma's sleeping form in his arms. "I forgot that happiness could be so simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Children don't need expensive entertainment. They just need presence and attention and the security of knowing their parents love spending time with them." As they walked to the parking lot, James realized something had shifted between him and Nora. The easy conversation, the shared laughter, the way she'd helped him connect with Emma, it all felt natural and right in a way nothing had for years. "Nora," he said as they reached her car, "would you like to have dinner sometime? Not coffee, not to discuss Emma. Just dinner." Nora smiled. "I'd like that very much. And maybe next weekend, you could come to our house. Emma's been asking if you could see her room and meet her imaginary sister Amy. You know about Amy? Emma told me after our last conversation. I realized there was a lot about my daughter's inner life I didn't know. James, can I tell you something? The fact that you're here tonight, that you spent the whole evening focused on Emma and having fun with her, tells me you're a better father than you give yourself credit for. You just needed to remember how to enjoy being one." That night, as James tucked Emma into bed, she was still glowing with happiness. "Daddy, that was the best day ever. Everyone at school thought you were so cool, and Miss Nora said you were very funny." "Did she?" "Uh-huh. She likes you. I can tell." Emma yawned sleepily. "Do you like her?" James considered the question seriously. "Yes, sweetheart. I do like her." "Good. Maybe she could come over for dinner and meet Amy." "Maybe she could. And Daddy? Maybe Miss Nora is the kind of person who would want to help us be a real family. You know, the kind that has more than just two people." As James turned off Emma's light, he realized his daughter might be right. For the first time since his wife's death, he could imagine opening his heart and his home to someone new. Someone who understood both him and Emma, and who might want to help them build the complete family Emma dreamed of. Dinner at the Johnson mansion the following Friday was unlike any meal the house had ever hosted. Instead of the formal dining room with its crystal chandelier and table for 20, James had set up a casual dinner in the breakfast nook. Nora arrived with a homemade apple pie and a warm smile that immediately put Emma at ease. "Miss Nora, you're really here." Emma practically bounced as she led Nora through the front entrance. "Wait until you see everything. Our house is huge, but Daddy says we're going to eat in the small room tonight so it feels more cozy." James appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron over his casual clothes, looking slightly frazzled. "I should warn you, I'm not much of a cook. I ordered dinner from a restaurant, but I'm heating it up myself so it's more homemade." Nora laughed. "The effort is what matters. And this pie is from my grandmother's recipe, so at least dessert will definitely be homemade." Emma gave Nora a complete tour of the house, chattering excitedly about every room. James followed behind, seeing his home through Nora's eyes. The formal living spaces were beautiful but cold, obviously decorated by professionals rather than family members. "This is my room," Emma announced, throwing open her bedroom door. The space was every little girl's dream: pink walls, a canopy bed, more toys than any child could use, and a reading corner with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. "Emma, this is beautiful," Nora said, genuinely admiring the room. "You have so many books." "Daddy buys me new ones every week. But look, this is the best part. Emma led Nora to the second bed on the opposite side of the room. It was perfectly made with a different comforter pattern. This is Amy's bed. She's my sister, but she's imaginary. Do you want to meet her? James held his breath, worried that Nora would find Emma's imaginary friend concerning or strange. I'd love to meet Amy, Nora said seriously, sitting on the edge of the empty bed. Emma's face lit up. Amy, this is Miss Nora. She's my teacher and Daddy's friend. Emma paused as if listening, then giggled. Amy says you're very pretty and she likes your earrings. Tell Amy thank you. Those are my favorite earrings. Nora played along naturally. What does Amy like to do? She likes to read stories and play dress up and help me practice my letters. She's really good at math, better than me. And she never gets scared at night like I do sometimes. Amy sounds like a wonderful sister. She is, but she's not real. Emma's voice grew wistful. I wish she was real so she could hug me back and talk to Daddy too. James felt his heart break a little as he watched his daughter's longing for real companionship. Well, Nora said thoughtfully, imaginary friends are special because they're always exactly what we need them to be. Amy sounds like she's been a very good friend to you. During dinner, James was amazed at how easily Nora fit into their routine. She listened to Emma's stories about school with genuine interest, helped her cut her chicken, and somehow made the conversation flow naturally between all three of them. Miss Nora, do you live in a big house like ours? Emma asked between bites. No, sweetheart. I live in a small apartment near downtown. It has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. Emma looked puzzled. Isn't that lonely? Our house is so big sometimes I can't find Daddy. James winced at the unintentional criticism. Sometimes it is a little lonely, Nora admitted. That's why I like spending time with friends and family. Houses are just buildings, it's the people in them that make them homes. Is that why our house doesn't feel like a home? Emma asked innocently. Because there's only 2 people in it. The question hung in the air. James realized Emma had unconsciously identified the problem he'd never been able to articulate. Their house was a beautiful, expensive building, but it didn't feel like a warm, welcoming home. Emma, Nora said gently, what would make your house feel more like a home? Emma considered seriously. More people. Not strangers, but people who belong to us. Like Amy, if she was real. Or like you, if you wanted to be part of our family. James nearly choked on his wine. His daughter's directness was both embarrassing and endearing. Emma, that's a very sweet thing to say, Nora replied smoothly. Your daddy and I are still getting to know each other as friends. But you could get to know each other as more than friends, right? That's how people fall in love. Emma, James interjected, maybe we should let Miss Nora eat her dinner without giving her the 3rd degree about our family planning. I don't mind, Nora smiled. Emma, you're right that people usually start as friends before they fall in love. But these things take time. You can't rush love. How much time? Every situation is different. Some people know quickly, others take months or years to figure out their feelings. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Daddy, how long did it take you to fall in love with Mommy? James was quiet for a moment. About 6 months. We met at a coffee shop, and she spilled her latte all over my business papers. I was angry at first, but then she laughed so hard at herself that I couldn't help laughing too. Do you still miss her? Every day. But missing someone doesn't mean you can't care about new people too. Emma looked between James and Nora with 8-year-old calculation. So if you and Miss Nora fall in love, would that mean I could get a sister? Emma, that's a very big if, James said carefully. But it's possible. Nora saved him from answering. Emma, would you like to help me serve the pie? I bet you're an excellent pie server. As they moved around the kitchen together, James watched Nora interact with his daughter. She was patient and kind, but also honest about difficult topics. She didn't talk down to Emma or dismiss her questions, even the uncomfortable ones. "James, you have a remarkable daughter," Nora said when Emma went upstairs to brush her teeth. "She's thoughtful and articulate, and she has a very clear vision of what she wants her life to look like. She's been obsessed with this sister idea for months. It's not really about a sister, you know. It's about belonging to something bigger than just the two of you. She wants to be part of a complete family unit. And you think that requires me to remarry and have more children?" Nora was quiet for a moment. "I think it requires you to be open to the possibility of love again. Not necessarily for Emma's sake, but for your own. A child can sense when their parent is only half living." "Have I been only half living? What do you think?" James considered the question honestly. Since his wife's death, he had focused entirely on work and Emma's immediate needs. He hadn't pursued friendships, hobbies, or any kind of personal fulfillment. He'd been surviving, not thriving. "Maybe," he admitted. "Emma's sister obsession might be her way of trying to fix what she senses is missing in your life as much as hers." When Emma returned from brushing her teeth, she had changed into her pajamas and was carrying a book. "Miss Nora, would you read me a story? Daddy reads to me sometimes, but he always sounds tired. You have a good story voice." Nora looked to James for permission, who nodded gratefully. They all settled on Emma's bed, with Emma in the middle and Nora reading a picture book about a little girl who befriends a lonely dragon. As Nora read, James found himself watching her animated expressions and the way Emma hung on every word. His daughter was completely relaxed and happy in a way he rarely saw her. "The end," Nora finished, closing the book. "That was perfect," Emma sighed contentedly. "Miss Nora, do you think you could read to me again sometime? I'd like that very much." "Maybe you could read to me every night," Emma said hopefully. "If you lived here, I mean." "Emma," James warned gently. "I'm just saying, if Miss Nora lived here, she could read to me and help Daddy not be lonely, and maybe we could have a real baby sister instead of just Amy." Nora tucked the covers around Emma. "You have a very active imagination, sweetheart. Sweet dreams." As they walked downstairs together, James felt nervous about being alone with Nora after Emma's pointed comments about their future. "I apologize for Emma's not-so-subtle matchmaking," he said as they reached the front door. "She's 8 years old and she's lost one parent. Of course she wants to secure a complete family for herself. It's actually very logical thinking. Is it wrong of me to let her hope for something that might not happen?" Nora turned to face him fully. "James, can I ask you something honestly?" "Yes. Do you feel anything when we spend time together? Or are you just going through the motions because Emma likes me?" The question was direct and deserved an honest answer. "I feel, more than I expected to. More than I've felt since my wife died. But that scares me." "Why?" "Because what if I let myself care about you and something happens? What if Emma gets attached and then loses another important person in her life?" Nora stepped closer. "What if you let yourself care about me and something wonderful happens? What if Emma gets to experience what it's like to be part of a loving, complete family? You make it sound simple. Love is simple. It's fear that makes it complicated." Nora smiled softly. "James, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or promise me anything you're not ready for. I'm just asking you to be open to the possibility that maybe Emma is right. Maybe we could be good for each other." She kissed his cheek gently and whispered, "Think about it." As James watched her drive away, he realized he didn't need to think about it. He already knew that spending time with Nora felt like coming alive again. The question wasn't whether he was developing feelings for her, he definitely was. The question was whether he was brave enough to pursue them. Upstairs, Emma called out softly, "Daddy. Is Miss Nora gone?" "Yes, sweetheart. Did you have fun tonight?" James thought about the evening, the easy conversation, the shared laughter, the way Nora had made their big, empty house feel warm and full. Yes, Emma. I had a lot of fun. Me too. I think Miss Nora likes us. I think you're right. Daddy? Do you think maybe Amy won't be imaginary much longer? James understood what she was really asking. Do you think we might become a real family soon? I don't know, sweetheart. But I'm starting to think it's possible. Emma's sleepy smile was answer enough. James was reviewing quarterly reports in his office Monday morning when his business partner, Richard Sterling, burst through the door without knocking. Richard was a man in his 60s who had been James's mentor when he started the company and still owned a significant stake in the business. We need to talk, Richard said, his face grim as he settled into the chair across from James's desk. Good morning to you too, Richard. What's wrong? What's wrong is that half the city is talking about you playing ring toss at a school carnival and getting your face painted like a butterfly. Richard tossed a newspaper onto the desk. Page 6 of the lifestyle section. James looked down to see a photo of himself at Emma's school festival, his face painted with colorful butterfly wings, grinning as he helped Emma with a game. The caption read, Millionaire developer James Johnson shows his softer side at local school event. I don't understand the problem, James said carefully. The problem is image, James. We're about to close the biggest deal in our company's history with the Wellington Group. They're conservative, traditional businessmen who believe in maintaining a certain standard of professional behavior. Playing games with my daughter at her school festival hardly seems unprofessional. Richard leaned forward. It's not just the festival, James. There are rumors you're dating a school teacher. A black school teacher. James felt anger rising in his chest. And what exactly would be wrong with that? Nothing personally, of course. But the Wellington Group, let's just say they have certain expectations about the kind of people they do business with. Their wives don't work, their social circles are very established. Are you suggesting I shouldn't date someone because of her race or profession? I'm suggesting you need to think about what's best for the company. This deal could make us one of the largest development firms on the East Coast. It could set up Emma's financial future for generations. James stood up abruptly. Emma's financial future is already secure. And I don't appreciate the implication that I should choose business partners based on their racial prejudices. James, be practical. You can date whoever you want after we close this deal. Just, keep things low-key for the next few months. Get out of my office, Richard. James, get out. And don't ever come in here again questioning my personal choices based on what you think will make bigoted business partners comfortable. After Richard left, James sat alone in his office, staring at the newspaper photo. He looked genuinely happy in the picture, happier than he'd appeared in any business photo in years. But Richard's words echoed in his mind. Was he being selfish by risking the company's biggest deal for a relationship that might not even work out? Meanwhile, across town, Nora was dealing with her own relationship pressure. She had agreed to meet her ex-boyfriend, Marcus Williams, for lunch after he'd been calling and texting for weeks asking to talk. Marcus was everything James wasn't, a successful lawyer who happened to be black, someone who moved in social circles where everyone looked like them and understood their shared cultural experiences. He was handsome, charming, and had been trying to win Nora back since their breakup 6 months earlier. You look beautiful, as always, Marcus said as they settled into a booth at an upscale restaurant downtown. I've missed you. Marcus, we've been over this. We broke up for good reasons. We broke up because I was working too much and not giving you enough attention. I've changed, Nora. I've cut back my hours, I'm making time for relationships. That's good. I'm happy for you. I want to make time for our relationship. I want another chance. Nora sighed. Marcus, I'm seeing someone. Marcus's expression darkened. Who? Is it serious? It's developing. His name is James, and he has a daughter in my class. James Johnson. The real estate guy. Marcus had clearly done his research. Nora, be realistic. What do you think is going to happen with that relationship? You think he's going to marry a school teacher and blend into your world? What's that supposed to mean? It means men like James Johnson don't marry women like us for love, Nora. They marry us to prove they're not racist, or because they want some exotic experience, but they don't build real lives with us. That's not fair, and it's not true. Isn't it? Has he introduced you to his business associates? Has he taken you to any of his fancy social events? Or do you just hang out at school functions and casual coffee shops? Nora felt uncomfortable because Marcus's questions hit close to some doubts she'd been having herself. James lived in a completely different world from hers, and she hadn't seen any sign that he was ready to integrate their lives beyond their growing personal connection. He's a good man, Marcus. He loves his daughter, and he's learning to open his heart again after losing his wife. And when he's done using you to heal from his grief, what then? You think he's going to choose you over his business empire and his rich friends? You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you deserve better than being someone's charity case or experimental rebound relationship. Marcus reached across the table to touch her hand. I know you deserve to be with someone who doesn't have to sacrifice anything to be with you. That afternoon, both James and Nora found themselves questioning their growing relationship for different reasons. James wondered if he was being irresponsible with his daughter's future security by potentially jeopardizing business deals. Nora wondered if she was setting herself up for heartbreak by getting involved with someone whose world might never truly accept her. When James picked Emma up from school that day, she immediately sensed his mood. "Daddy, you look sad. Did something bad happen at work?" "Just some complicated business stuff, sweetheart." "Is it about Miss Nora?" "Sarah's mommy said she saw your picture in the newspaper and that some people might not like you dating a black lady." James felt his stomach drop. Sarah's mommy said what? She said some people are old-fashioned about stuff like that. But I told her Miss Nora is the nicest person ever and anyone who doesn't like her is stupid. Emma, you shouldn't call people stupid. But they are stupid, Daddy. Miss Nora is smart and pretty and kind and she makes us both happy. If people don't like her because of the color of her skin, that's their problem, not ours. James was amazed by his 8-year-old daughter's clarity on something he was struggling with. You're right, sweetheart. That would be their problem. So are you still going to date Miss Nora? I hope so. Good. Because I already told Amy that. Miss Nora might become her real mommy, and Amy is very excited about not being imaginary anymore. That evening, James called Nora. Can we talk? I had a difficult conversation today, and I imagine you might have too. They met at a quiet park near Nora's apartment. As they walked along a tree-lined path, they shared the pressures they'd each faced that day. So your business partner thinks you should choose business success over personal happiness, Nora summarized after James explained his conversation with Richard. And your ex-boyfriend thinks I'm using you for some kind of racial absolution or temporary comfort, James replied after hearing about her lunch with Marcus. They sat down on a bench overlooking a small pond. Are we crazy for thinking this could work? Nora asked. Maybe. But Emma said something today that made sense. She said if people don't like you because of the color of your skin, that's their problem, not ours. She's a wise little girl. She also said anyone who doesn't appreciate how wonderful you are is stupid. Nora laughed despite her worries. I like that child more every day. Nora, I need you to know something. I don't care about the Wellington Group deal. I don't care what Richard thinks or what any business associate thinks about who I choose to love. James, let me finish. I've spent 2 years focused only on work and Emma's basic needs because I was afraid to risk my heart again. But these past few weeks with you have reminded me what it feels like to be truly alive. I'm not going to let fear or other people's prejudices stop me from pursuing something real. Nora was quiet for a long moment. I'm scared too, she admitted. Not of you, but of the differences in our worlds. I'm scared of not fitting into your life, or of you realizing that being with me costs more than you're willing to pay. James took her hand. What if we stop worrying about fitting into each other's existing worlds and start building a new world together? What if we focus on what we want our life to look like instead of what other people expect it to look like? That sounds wonderful in theory. Then let's test it in practice. Come with me to the Wellington Group dinner next week. Meet my business associates and let them meet the amazing woman I'm falling in love with. Nora's breath caught. Did you just say you're falling in love with me? Yes. Are you okay with that? Nora smiled, all her doubts melting away in the face of his honest declaration. I'm more than okay with that. Because I'm falling in love with you too. As they kissed under the park's lamplight, both of them knew they were choosing to fight for their relationship instead of letting outside pressure tear them apart. The real test would come at the Wellington Group dinner, where James would have to decide once and for all whether his business success mattered more than his personal happiness. But for now, they had chosen each other, and that felt like the beginning of something worth fighting for. The Wellington Group dinner was held at the city's most exclusive country club, a place where James had attended dozens of business functions over the years. As he and Nora walked through the marble entrance, he felt her tension despite her composed exterior. Nora looked stunning in a simple black dress that was elegant without being flashy. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, wanting to look appropriate for the formal event while staying true to her own style. James wore his best suit and felt proud to have her on his arm. You look beautiful, he whispered as they approached the reception area. I feel like everyone is staring, she whispered back. They're staring because you're the most beautiful woman here. The cocktail hour was exactly what Nora had feared. Polite conversations that felt like subtle interviews, carefully worded questions about her background and profession, and the underlying sense that she was being evaluated rather than welcomed. So you're a teacher, said Mrs. Wellington, the matriarch of the family business. How noble. And you teach James's daughter? Yes, Emma is one of my students. She's a remarkable child. I'm sure she is. Children from broken homes often are quite resilient. James tensed at the backhanded comment about Emma, but Nora handled it gracefully. Emma isn't from a broken home, Mrs. Wellington. She's from a loving home that has experienced loss. There's a difference. Of course, dear. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. The conversation continued in this vein for most of the cocktail hour. James watched Nora handle every subtle slight and condescending comment with grace and intelligence, but he could see the effort it was costing her. When they were seated for dinner, James found himself placed next to Mr. Wellington while Nora was seated several chairs away between two wives who seemed more interested in discussing their charity committees than including her in conversation. James, we're very excited about this partnership, Mr. Wellington said over the appetizer course. Your company has an excellent reputation, and we believe this collaboration will be very profitable for both of us. I appreciate your confidence in our work. Of course, we do value compatibility in all our business relationships. We like to work with people who share our values. James understood the implication. What values would those be? Traditional values. Family values. The importance of maintaining certain standards in both business and personal relationships. James glanced down the table at Nora, who was politely listening to a woman complain about the difficulty of finding good domestic help. His jaw tightened. Mr. Wellington, could you be more specific about what standards you're referring to? Mr. Wellington's smile was thin. I think we understand each other, James. Let's just say we believe in the importance of appropriate partnerships. If you have something to say about my personal life, please say it directly. The older man's facade dropped slightly. Very well. We believe successful businessmen should be mindful of how their personal choices reflect on their professional reputation. Some relationships can be complicated for business. James set down his fork and looked Mr. Wellington directly in the eyes. Are you suggesting that my relationship with Nora is a problem for you? I'm suggesting that mixing business with social experimentation can be problematic. The comment was so blatantly racist that James felt his anger surge. Mr. Wellington, I need to be very clear about something. Nora isn't a social experiment. She's an intelligent, accomplished woman who I care about deeply. If you can't respect that, then I don't think we're compatible business partners after all. James, don't be hasty. Think about what you're saying. James stood up, his voice carrying to nearby tables. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that any business deal that requires me to hide or apologize for the woman I love isn't worth pursuing. The conversation around them had quieted as other diners began to notice the tension. Nora looked up from her end of the table, sensing something was wrong. Furthermore, James continued, his voice steady but loud enough for others to hear, any business partners who judge my character based on my girlfriend's race aren't the kind of people I want to work with anyway. Mr. Wellington's face reddened. I think you're making a serious mistake. The only mistake I made was thinking I could work with people who live in the past. James pulled out his phone and dialed Richard's number. When his partner answered, James spoke clearly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Richard, call off the Wellington deal. I'm withdrawing our proposal. James, what? I'll explain later. James hung up and looked around the table at the shocked faces. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for an enlightening evening. He walked to where Nora was sitting and extended his hand. Would you like to get some real dinner somewhere else? Nora took his hand and stood, her face glowing with pride and love. I would love that. As they walked through the dining room toward the exit, James heard murmurs of conversation and felt the weight of stares. But for the first time in years, he didn't care what other people thought. He cared about what was right, and what was right was choosing love over money, principle over profit. Outside in the parking lot, Nora turned to face him. James, what did you just do? That was a huge business deal. I just chose what matters most to me. James cupped her face in his hands. I chose you. I chose us. I chose the kind of man I want to be and the kind of life I want to live. But your business will survive and thrive without partners who can't respect the woman I love. James kissed her softly. Nora, I love you. Not despite who you are, but because of who you are. I love your intelligence and your kindness and your strength. I love how you see the best in people, especially in Emma and me. Tears filled Nora's eyes. I love you too. But I don't want to be the reason you make enemies in your business. You're not the reason. Their prejudice is the reason. And I'd rather build a smaller business with my integrity intact than a larger business based on compromising my values. They had dinner at a small Italian restaurant near Nora's apartment, talking and laughing and planning their future without the weight of other people's expectations hanging over them. What will Emma think about what happened tonight? Nora asked over dessert. Emma will be proud that I stood up for our family, James said. Because that's what we are now, isn't it? A family? Are we? I hope so. I want us to be. James reached across the table to take her hand. Nora, I know we haven't been dating very long, but I know what I want. I want to build a life with you. I want Emma to have the complete family she's been dreaming of. I want us to fill that big, empty house with love and laughter. James, I'm not proposing yet, he said with a smile. I think we should take some time to make sure we're ready for that step. But I'm saying I want to work toward it. I want us to work toward it. Nora squeezed his hand. I want that too. When James arrived home that night, he found Emma waiting up in her pajamas, sitting on the stairs. Daddy. How was your fancy dinner? Did Miss Nora look beautiful? She looked gorgeous, and the dinner was interesting. What happened? You look happy but also mad. James sat down on the stairs next to his daughter. Some people at the dinner were rude about Miss Nora because she doesn't look like them. Emma's face scrunched with indignation. That's terrible. What did you do? I told them they were wrong, and I left the dinner. Miss Nora and I went somewhere better. Good. I'm proud of you for standing up for her. Emma leaned against his side. Daddy, does this mean you really love Miss Nora? Yes, sweetheart. I really love her. And she loves you? She said she does. Emma was quiet for a moment. So does this mean I might get my sister soon? James laughed and hugged his daughter. We're working on it, Emma. Miss Nora and I want to make sure we're ready to be a real family before we take the next steps. Amy is very excited, Emma said seriously. She's been practicing being a real sister. Has she? Uh-huh. She's been learning songs to sing to a baby and thinking about how to help change diapers and everything. James felt his heart swell with love for his daughter's unwavering faith in their growing family. Well, you tell Amy to keep practicing. It might not be too long before she gets to be a real big sister. Emma's smile was brighter than any business success James had ever achieved. 6 months later, James stood in his bedroom holding a small velvet box, more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. The ring inside was simple but beautiful, a classic solitaire diamond that Nora would appreciate for its elegance rather than its size. He'd learned enough about her by now to know she'd prefer meaning over extravagance. Downstairs, Emma was pacing the living room in her best dress, practically vibrating with excitement. She'd been planning this proposal almost as much as James had, and her input had been invaluable in making sure everything would be perfect. Daddy, is it time yet? Emma called up the stairs for the 10th time in 20 minutes. Almost, sweetheart. Remember, you have to wait for my signal before you come out with the flowers. I know. But I'm so excited I can't stand still. James smiled as he came downstairs. Over the past 6 months, their house had been transformed from a cold mansion into a warm home. Nora spent most evenings there, helping Emma with homework, cooking dinner with James, and gradually adding her own touches to the decor. She'd suggested family photos in the hallways, comfortable throw pillows in the living room, and plants that made the space feel alive. More importantly, Emma had blossomed under Nora's consistent presence. She laughed more, worried less, and had even stopped talking to her imaginary sister Amy quite as much. When James had asked her about this, Emma had explained that she didn't need Amy as much anymore because she had Nora to talk to about everything. The transformation in James had been equally dramatic. He'd learned to prioritize family time over work demands, to be present during conversations instead of checking his phone, and to find joy in simple domestic moments. His business had actually improved after he'd ended the partnership with Richard and started focusing on deals that aligned with his values rather than just his profit margins. Tonight, he was ready to make their family official. Nora arrived at 7 o'clock, thinking she was coming for their usual Sunday family dinner. She looked beautiful in a blue sundress, her hair falling in soft curls around her shoulders. James met her at the door with a kiss that lasted longer than usual. You look happy tonight, she said, studying his face. What's got you in such a good mood? Can't I just be happy to see the woman I love? You can, but you look like you're bursting with some kind of secret. Emma appeared in the doorway, grinning widely. Hi Miss Nora. You look so pretty tonight. Thank you, sweetheart. You look very fancy yourself. Is this a special dinner? Emma looked at James with barely contained excitement. Daddy says I can't tell you why it's special. You have to wait and see. Dinner was Emma's favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs that James had actually cooked himself, with Nora's guidance over the phone earlier that day. As they ate, James found himself memorizing every detail of the evening, the way Nora laughed at Emma's jokes, the way she helped Emma twirl her spaghetti, the way she looked completely at home in their dining room. "This is delicious," Nora said, taking another bite. "You're becoming quite the chef." "I had a good teacher." "We make a good team in the kitchen," Nora agreed. "Actually, we make a good team everywhere." Emma giggled. "Daddy, should I go get the—" "Not yet," James said quickly. "Let's finish dinner first." After they'd cleared the dishes together, James suggested they go out to the back garden. It was a beautiful evening in late spring, and the garden was full of blooming flowers that Nora had helped Emma plant. "Oh, James, look how beautiful everything looks." Nora admired the roses and tulips that lined the walkway. "Emma, your flowers are gorgeous." "I watered them every day like you taught me," Emma said proudly. "And I talked to them because you said plants like to hear nice words." As they strolled through the garden, James felt his nervousness building. He'd rehearsed what he wanted to say, but now that the moment was approaching, all his carefully planned words seemed inadequate. They stopped at the fountain in the center of the garden, where James had placed a small table set with tea lights and Emma's hand-picked flowers earlier that day. Nora looked surprised and delighted. "This is so beautiful. What's the occasion?" James took her hands and looked into her eyes. "Nora, 6 months ago, you walked into our lives and changed everything. You helped me remember what it feels like to be truly happy. You showed Emma what it means to have a mother's love again. You turned our house into a home." "James, what—" "Let me finish." He dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring box. Nora gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. "Nora, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love again. I love your strength and your kindness and your wisdom. I love how you see the best in everyone, especially in me and Emma. I love the family we've built together, and I want to make it official." Emma appeared from behind a rose bush where she'd been hiding, carrying a bouquet of white roses. "Miss Nora, these are for you. Daddy and I picked them special." Nora accepted the flowers with tears in her eyes, looking back and forth between James and Emma. "Nora," James continued, his voice thick with emotion, "will you marry me? Will you be Emma's stepmother and my wife and help us build the complete family we've all been dreaming of? Say yes." Emma whispered loudly. "Amy really wants you to say yes." Nora laughed through her tears. "Yes. Of course, yes." James slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her while Emma cheered and danced around them. "I have something to tell you too," Nora said when they finally broke apart. "I was going to wait until after dinner, but this seems like the perfect time." "What?" "I think Emma might get her baby sister sooner than we planned." James stared at her in confusion for a moment before understanding dawned. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm pregnant. About 6 weeks along." Emma shrieked with pure joy. "Really? Really, really? I'm going to have a real baby sister." "We don't know if it's a sister yet," Nora laughed. "It could be a brother." "I don't care. I'm going to be a big sister. Amy is so excited she's practically floating." James felt overwhelmed with happiness as he pulled both Nora and Emma into his arms. After years of emptiness and loneliness, their family was not only complete but growing. "When did you find out?" he asked Nora. "Yesterday. I was going to tell you tonight, but then you surprised me with this perfect proposal. This is the best day ever," Emma announced. "First I get Miss Nora as my real mommy, and then I get a real baby sister or brother." "Actually," Nora said, kneeling down to Emma's level, "there's one more thing. After your daddy and I get married, would you like me to adopt you officially? So you'd be my daughter legally as well as in my heart." Emma's eyes went wide. "You mean you'd really be my mommy forever and ever?" "Forever and ever. If you want me to be." Emma threw her arms around Nora's neck. I want that more than anything. Can we tell Amy? She's been waiting so long to have a real family. As they walked back to the house together, Emma chattering excitedly about all her plans for helping with the baby, James felt a deep sense of completion. His daughter's simple wish for a sister had led them all to something much bigger, a loving, complete family built on genuine affection and commitment. James, Nora said softly as Emma ran ahead to call her grandmother with the news, are you sure you're ready for all this? Marriage, adoption, a new baby? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. James kissed her temple. Emma was right all along. We just needed to find each other. She's going to be an amazing big sister. She's been practicing with Amy for months. I think she's ready. That night, as they tucked Emma into bed, she looked at both of them with pure contentment. Amy says thank you, Emma announced. For what? Nora asked. For making her real. She says she's not imaginary anymore because now she's going to be the baby sister, and I'm going to be the real big sister she always knew I could be. James and Nora exchanged a look of understanding. Emma's imaginary sister had never been about wanting another child to play with, it had been about wanting to belong to a complete family where she could be someone's big sister, someone's daughter, someone important and needed and loved. Tell Amy she's very welcome, Nora said softly. And tell her we can't wait to meet her. As they turned off the lights and left Emma to drift off to sleep, James realized that sometimes the most impossible wishes can come true in the most unexpected ways. Emma had asked him to buy her a sister, and he discovered that the best things in life can't be bought, they can only be found through love, courage, and the willingness to open your heart to new possibilities. 1 year later, James paced the hospital waiting room at 3 a.m., more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. Inside the delivery room, Nora was in labor with their daughter, and Emma was curled up asleep in a chair nearby, still wearing the big sister t-shirt she'd insisted on putting on when they rushed to the hospital 6 hours earlier. Mr. Johnson. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Would you like to bring Emma in? Your wife is asking for both of you. James gently shook Emma awake. Sweetheart, it's time. Your baby sister is almost here. Emma's eyes flew open instantly. Really? Is Miss Nora okay? Is the baby okay? Everyone's doing great. Come on, let's go meet your sister. They scrubbed their hands and put on hospital gowns before entering the delivery room. Nora looked tired but radiant, her face glowing with exhaustion and joy. How are you feeling, beautiful? James asked, kissing her forehead. Ready to meet our daughter, Nora smiled. Emma, come hold my hand. I need my big girl with me. Emma climbed onto a chair next to the bed and took Nora's hand seriously. I'm here, Mommy Nora. Amy and I are both here to help. Over the past year, Emma had gradually started calling Nora Mommy Nora to distinguish her from her birth mother, whom she now referred to as Mommy in Heaven. The adoption had been finalized 3 months after the wedding, and Emma now proudly carried the name Emma Johnson Williams, combining both her parents' surnames. Mr. Johnson, we can see the baby's head, the doctor announced. A few more pushes and you'll meet your daughter. James felt tears in his eyes as he watched his wife work to bring their child into the world. This strong, amazing woman had not only saved his heart and given Emma the complete family she dreamed of, but was now giving them both the sister and daughter that would make their family perfect. One more push, Nora, the doctor encouraged. That's it. The sound of a baby's cry filled the room, and James felt his knees go weak with relief and overwhelming love. The doctor held up a tiny, perfect baby girl with a full head of dark curls and skin the same beautiful color as her mother's. She's here. Emma whispered in awe. Amy is really here. The nurse cleaned the baby quickly and placed her on Nora's chest. The infant immediately quieted, seeming to recognize her mother's voice as Nora spoke to her softly. Hello, beautiful girl, Nora whispered. We've been waiting so long to meet you. She's so tiny, Emma marveled, standing on her chair to get a better look. Can I touch her? Of course you can, sweetheart, James said, helping Emma gently stroke the baby's tiny hand. This is your little sister. The baby's fingers wrapped around Emma's finger, and Emma gasped with delight. Look! She knows I'm her big sister. Hi, Amy. I'm Emma, and I'm going to take the best care of you. James had to sit down as the full magnitude of the moment hit him. 2 years ago, he'd been a widowed single father struggling to understand his daughter's desperate wish for a sister. Now he was watching that daughter meet the baby sister she'd never stopped believing would come, while his wife, the woman who had made all of this possible, glowed with the joy of holding their child. What's her official name going to be? The nurse asked, preparing the birth certificate paperwork. James and Nora looked at each other and smiled. They'd discussed this many times over the past months. Amelia Rose Johnson Williams, Nora said. But she'll be called Amy. Emma's eyes went wide. You named her Amy? Really truly? Really truly, James confirmed. We thought it was perfect, since Amy has always been part of our family, even when she was just in your imagination. She was never just imagination, Daddy. She was always real in my heart. Now she's real in everyone's heart. The next few hours passed in a blur of nurses, paperwork, and visitors. Both sets of grandparents came to meet the new baby, and Mrs. Patterson brought a beautiful handmade blanket she'd been knitting for months. When they were finally settled in the recovery room, James sat in a chair holding baby Amy while Nora rested and Emma sat on the bed next to her new mother, telling her all about the things she planned to teach Amy when she got bigger. I'm going to show her how to ride a bike and how to swim in our pool and how to read all the best books, Emma chattered excitedly. And I'm going to help her with her homework and teach her how to braid hair and how to not be scared of thunderstorms. Those all sound like excellent big sister jobs, Nora agreed sleepily. Mommy Nora, thank you for giving me Amy. This is the best present ever. You're welcome, sweetheart. But you know what? Amy is lucky to have you as her big sister too. James looked down at the sleeping baby in his arms and marveled at how perfect she was. She had Nora's delicate features and his strong chin, and already seemed to have Emma's peaceful temperament. What are you thinking about? Nora asked softly. I'm thinking about how Emma asked me to buy her a sister 2 years ago, and how impossible that seemed at the time. And now? Now I'm thinking that Emma was smarter than all of us. She knew exactly what our family needed, even when I couldn't see it. Emma looked up from where she was gently stroking Amy's hair. I told you money couldn't buy a sister, Daddy. But love could make one. You were absolutely right, sweetheart. Amy, Emma whispered to the sleeping baby, you're going to love our family so much. We have the biggest, most beautiful house, and a daddy who gives the best hugs, and a mommy who tells the most wonderful stories. And you have me, and I promise I'll always take care of you and love you and make sure you never feel lonely like I used to. James felt tears streaming down his face as he listened to his older daughter's promises to his younger daughter. The loneliness and emptiness that had defined their lives for so long seemed like a distant memory now. Welcome to the family, Amy Rose, he whispered to the baby. You're the answer to every prayer we didn't know how to pray. As the sun rose outside the hospital window, the Johnson Williams family was finally complete. Emma had her sister, James had his wife and growing family, Nora had the husband and daughters she'd always dreamed of, and baby Amy had entered the world surrounded by more love than any child could ever need. The little girl who had once asked her father to buy her a sister had instead taught him that the most precious things in life, love, family, and happiness, can't be purchased. They can only be built through patience, courage, and the willingness to open your heart to the unexpected ways that dreams can come true. 6 months later, visitors to the Johnson Williams house would find a transformed space filled with the sounds of family life. Emma's laughter as she played peek-a-boo with Amy, Nora's voice reading bedtime stories, James's off-key singing during bath time, and Amy's delighted giggles as her big sister entertained her. The mansion that had once felt cold and empty now overflowed with warmth, love, and the beautiful chaos of a family that had found each other through the simple wish of a lonely little girl who knew, even when the adults around her didn't, that love was the only currency that mattered. Emma had asked for a sister, and in return, she'd given her father the courage to love again, her stepmother a ready-made family to cherish, and her baby sister the gift of being born into a home where she was already completely and unconditionally loved. And sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet, Emma would whisper to her sleeping baby sister, "I told everyone you were real, Amy. I knew you'd find your way to us eventually." Because the best dreams, Emma had learned, aren't the ones you buy, they're the ones you believe in strongly enough to make them come true.